There is a window above the graceful arches of the Palais Royal gardens, which is pointed out as Colette's. The children, playing hopping games, and the bent old woman, who dusts off the paying chairs, pause to point it out to strangers, who wander through the galleries, hunting fashionable or notorious ghosts of the past. They watch Cocteau's, Marais and Colette's blinds with a reverence their prototypes a few generations ago scarcely had for the jewelers' fences, revolutionaries and courtesans whose windows were equally well known. Up the darkest staircase in Paris, to press a mute electricityless doorbell. To pound until knuckles are numb, and Pauline, the devoted ogress slave of Colette, stumbles through a lightless corridor to peer at and identify the visitor, and to satisfy herself that she approves. For if Pauline doesn't approve, there is no second invitation. Against the cold light from the tall windows, Colette's fuzzy hair is a halo. The room is hot, the fur coverings of her bed, tawny rich, and she is almost certainly telephoning. She took off her grotesque heavy-rimmed spectacles, shifted the phone, and tucked my hand for me to sit on the side of the bed, while she continued toying and gently scolding a small female voice which leaked out into the room. Finally, the typewriter would be returned by the small voice. She would also apply for transport to Limoges and would come for tea tomorrow. À demain. Colette turned to me and said, Alors, qu'est-ce que vous voulez? Her voice was gruff, but her hand had been warm, and her kohl-rimmed eyes matched in sparkle and clarity the myriad of crystal balls and glass bibelots which strewed the room. Her eyes were shrewd, too. So I spoke my piece. Pour vous dire bonjour, et pour vous demander si je peux vous faire votre portrait en photo. Tiens, elle parle le français? And she relaxed. Have you just arrived? Oh, I've been in Paris a long time, but they said you were in bed, ill. I hesitated to call. But of course, I'm always in bed. I always will be. Once in a while I go out, but... And she pouted. We chatted about America and England, as well as about the big tree, the cold, the black market, and the vanishing end of the war. She thought it funny that I should have been transformed from Cocteau's statue in the blood of a poet to a poilu. Her enthusiasm came in gusts, which carried her across the room, darting here and there to choose a book or an objet, and yet she never left her bed. It was an extension of her body, and she stretched her hand on my arm to reach an envelope of pictures, high on a shelf but way in her past, and from the past of her friends. In faded ochre and sepia, the parade of 50 extraordinary years was given me, like flashbacks or cinema trailers. Colette as Colette. Colette the siren, the gamine, the lady of fashion, the diplomat's wife, the mother, the author, the Legion of Honor, the Academy. Colette on top of the Chrysler building in Saint-Tropez. In the Saint-Tropez barefoot sandals which tickled the jaded shutters of New York's cheesecake ship photographers 10 years ago. There was the dandiest, vicious Monsieur Villy, her first husband. He was a very odd bird. Colette married him when she was 20, and he nearly twice her age. He was a talked-about man in town, a dazzling, successful author. She left a comfortable, petted life with her family for irregular and precarious living with a man who was irresponsible and perverted. Her life was lonesomeness, misery, neglect and ill health. And like the books make out, the lot of a cat's wife. She was ashamed to let her family know her disillusionment. Her husband's methods of being a bestseller were applied to her. She was an author vigorously, a sort of impresario or Svengali, and a cheat. Some psychological impediment of words made him impotent to write, but forced him to seek authorship through what was known as ghostwriters. He had a series of youngsters working for him under his name, and he spent more creative energy in this devious organizing than he'd ever done in his original work. Colette's first try, Claudine à l'école, embroidered memories of her school days disappointed him. and he pigeonholed it in disgust. A year later he gave it to a publisher who swooped with joy, and Monsieur Willy had a further personal frustration of not having recognized the pearl he had found. However, by the nursery method of locking her in her room until she completed a quota of pages, he sweated Colette into writing 3 more Claudines.